I'm Agent Morris with the NSA.
We have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft.
The traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion. Over.
Move very rapidly at any speed or whether any direction it wanted to go. Fly could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over. Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Good evening, everybody. This is Smiles Lewis with Anomaly-NOW, live straight out of Austin, Texas. This is the weekly live media news roundup for the 501c3 Scientific Anomaly Institute. Hey, thank you for joining us. It is Wednesday, December 6th, 2023, and man, I'm a little discombobulated, folks. My apologies. It's been things have just been really, really weird in general, but yeah. Have you heard about what happened here in San Antonio, Austin area this past 24, 48 hours? Wow. So if you haven't heard about this, there was a series of shootings. There was a double homicide in San Antonio, and then within hours of each other, there was a AISD, Austin Independent School District officer shot up in northeast Austin, and then a double homicide here in South Austin, and then a cyclist was shot over in Southwest Austin, and then a burglary and double homicide near to that location. And as it turns out, that South Austin double homicide, the middle one of the three, happened right around the time when I was walking our dog through our neighborhood and had intended to actually walk down the very street that this shooting and murder and mayhem occurred. That's here in South Austin. And where it all occurred is about 1,500 feet from our house. And as I say, I probably was about 700 feet near where this all went down within half an hour or so of when I was walking the dog. And as far as anybody knows so far, it's all random. There doesn't seem to be any known connection yet amongst the victims, and yeah, just randomness. And the other slide I was going to go to is not working. Oh well. So, meanwhile, I'm just gonna quickly go through some interesting headlines, most of which I have not had the chance to really digest yet, but that's always the case because there's just always so much to cover. As you know, you can go to our website, anomalyarchives.org, and there you'll find all kinds of information, including links to this podcast, audio, video, past events, and whatnot. And then you can find links over to our Flipboard, which is flipboard.com/@anomalyarchives. And there's a ton of information and news, some of which we'll be covering. Just saw this headline today. It's the Washington Times, so you know that I don't know what kinds of sources they have, but Pentagon spy agencies divulge details of U.S. government's experiments on humans. No news to anybody who's been paying attention to history, but it seemed within the first paragraph to reference the infamous leap to death of somebody who was dosed surreptitiously with LSD, and is often described as the first person to have jumped to their death because of the effects of LSD, when in fact a very thick book called A Terrible Mistake makes it quite clear that the U.S. government hired mafia thugs to throw him from the window where he fell from. But there's a lot of other news and headlines that we'll get to some of these as I'm scrolling through. Of course, tons of information and fascination that people have with cults. So there's that new HBO cult and this Rolling Stone article, Love Has Won, the deadly cult led by the spirit of Robin Williams. What? But let's get to some of the other headlines over at, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Duquesne Scholarship Collection at the Duquesne University. I'm probably totally butchering that. The Duquesne. It's at dsc.duq.edu. And it's a post by David Halperin, who's a professor. And they've posted a video that he did quite some time back called Anatomy of a Vision, a psychological approach to the Papua New Guinea UFO sightings from June 26th and 27th of 1959. This is a famous series of sightings witnessed by multiple people of what appeared to be a levitating or hovering or flying platform. And video has now been posted, and it's apparently going to be published in a anthology. I was happy to learn, thanks to the blog of David Halperin. Meanwhile, over at medicalexpress.com, study finds visions, speaking of non-physical world, are common among cognitively healthy Ojibwe individuals by University of Minnesota Medical School, over at medicalexpress.com. And lo and behold, having visions of other worlds isn't necessarily a sign of insanity or schizophrenia. Visual hallucinations, quote, are common among people with Lewy body dementia and other types of dementia. Identifying visual hallucinations is an important component of a wide variety of medical and psychiatric diagnoses and treatments. But without cultural context, some patients' symptoms can be misinterpreted or misdiagnosed. You think? Goes on to say, in existing medical literature, there is almost no information regarding normal spiritual experiences in American Indian participants in the context of a neurocognitive evaluation. University of Minnesota Medical School researchers sought to understand how Ojibwe culture and spirituality affect a person's assessment of normal aging. And it appears that this was published in the JAMA Network Open website, with a link there to, quote, the research team found that visions of the non-physical world are common among cognitively healthy Ojibwe individuals and can represent normal spiritual experiences. Might I go so far to say that that's normal for all of humanity? You can find out more over at Medical X, the letter X, PRESS, medicalexpress.com. Similar interesting mental article over at psypost.com. The brain can exhibit signs of consciousness long after the heart stops, study finds. This one's by Vladimir Hedra, and goes on to say, a study examining individuals who survived cardiac arrest revealed that approximately 1/3 reported memories and perceptions during this period, suggesting consciousness. Some recounted regaining consciousness during or after cardiopulmonary resuscitation, while others described dreamlike or transcendent experiences related to death. Importantly, the research team also found that the brain can exhibit signs of activity even after the heart has ceased to beat. The study was published in Resuscitation with a link to doi.org. And there is more over here at this scipost.org post. The research team identified 567 patients who suffered cardiac arrest in 25 hospitals during resuscitation. They placed a tablet computer and headphones on the patients, displaying images and playing sounds, words for fruits like apple, pear, or banana, to test for post-arrest memory recall. Of these individuals, medical staff were able to restore circulation in 213 of them, but only 53, or a bit over 9%, survived long enough to be discharged from the hospital. Survivors of cardiac arrest were more often male than female and younger. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation lasted 26 minutes on average, but individual duration varied a lot. Interviews were conducted with 28 survivors and their conscious experiences during cardiac arrest. 11 reported memories and perceptions indicative of consciousness, despite showing no external signs of consciousness like groaning or moving. These experiences included emerging from coma during or after resuscitation and dreamlike or transcendent experiences. Interesting. It goes on. The experiences reported by these 11 individuals could be grouped into 4 categories. 1, emerging from coma during or 2, after resuscitation. 3, dreamlike experiences. And 4, recollections of death. Well, you can read the rest over at sipost.org. So, meanwhile, there's been, talk about anniversaries of death. Nelson Mandela, of course, he passed away back in, was it June? Oh, no, wait. It's December 5th, right? No, yeah, December 5th, 2013, born in July of 1918. And what better time to note that, strangely, of all places, Forbes magazine, Forbes.com, has an article on the Mandela effect. A psychologist explains collective false memories. Yeah, I've definitely noticed a trend by Forbes, the economy business magazine, to be cashing in, so to speak, on paranormal and UFO and consciousness-related articles. This one talks about a study published in Consciousness and Cognition explains how these false memories can happen through the self-memory system, a conceptual framework highlighting the connection between our sense of self and our memory. This interconnection encompasses our episodic memory, autobiographical memory, and our portion of self-concept that guides information processing, or, quote, the working self. The research explains that our working self takes cues to build detailed memories based on the knowledge they bring up. This helps in constructing memories of our past and even in imagining future events. This construction process happens in what is called the, quote, remembering imagining system, a mental space filled with recent memories and simulations of things that might happen soon. So, yeah, pretty dismissive. And honestly, I don't honestly think that there's anything particularly paranormal about the Mandela effect. The fact that it seems to center around cultural memories and but also lots of product. Actually, this reminds me, and I don't have the link up, but there's a new podcast. Thank you, Bob Price, for turning me on to it, with Paul Giamatti, called Chinwag. And the first episode I watched, I think it was their second episode, that features as a guest Patton Oswalt. And apparently there's 2 episodes with Patton Oswalt where they're talking about the Mandela effect. And there was actually some interesting discussion in that. I'll try to remember to put that into the show notes as well. Moving quickly right along, over at nature.com, remember that pyramid that we reported on that is believed by some to be the oldest in the world at over 27,000 years old? Well, wait a second. A 27,000-year-old pyramid controversy hits an extraordinary archaeological claim. The massive buried structures at Gunung Padang in Indonesia would be much older than Egypt's Great Pyramids, if they're even human constructions at all. And this, I think, is just giving the counter argument that there's been misidentification of things that, in fact, are just natural occurring. So let's see, buried deep in the article. Shaky foundations. Gunung Padang comprises 5 stepped stone terraces with retaining walls and connecting staircases that sit atop an extinct volcano. Between 2011 and 2014, Natawijaja and colleagues investigated the site using several ground-penetrating techniques to determine what lies beneath the terraces. They identified 4 layers, which they conclude represent separate phases of construction. The innermost layer is a hardened lava core, which has been, quote, meticulously sculpted, according to the paper. Subsequent layers of rock, arranged like bricks, quote unquote, were built over the top of the oldest layers. The layers were carbon dated using soil lodged between rocks obtained from a core drilled out of the hill. The first stage of construction, according to the paper, occurred between 27,000 and 16,000 years ago. Yes, this is pretty much what we reported on last time. And they are saying, yes, these are extraordinary claims. Archaeological Prospection and its publisher, Wiley, have since launched an investigation into the paper. Eileen Ernewine, an archaeological geophysicist at Tennessee State University in Johnson City, who is co-editor of the journal, said in an email to Nature, quote, "The editors, including me and Wiley ethics team, are currently investigating this paper in accordance with Committee on Publication Ethics guidelines." She declined to elaborate on the nature of the concerns raised. Yeah, so we don't know what their objections are, other than I'm assuming, again, that they just think they've made a mistake and shouldn't have gotten so far as to publish these findings in a paper. Other recent anniversary deaths, of course, with the assassination of President John F. Kennedy back, however many decades ago. Our good friend Joseph Green has written reflections on the 60th anniversary of the murder of President John F. Kennedy that you can read over at kennedysandking.com. I really like Joseph's writing, and we'll provide a link to that. There is a picture of good old John Judge, who was good friends with Joseph. And I'll just read this a little bit here. Speaking of John Judge, for me personally, that was the great takeaway from the 50th anniversary, as this marked the last Coalition on Political Assassinations Conference, COPA, C-O-P-A. Standing outside in the sleet and cacophony with Alex Jones leading a gang of idiots on the streets of Dallas, John struggled to lift his booming voice above the din. We lost him early the next year. More recently, earlier this year, the distinguished Ken Thomas, creator of Steam Shovel Press, and he has Steam Shovel Magazine, left the ranks. A remarkable and fascinating researcher, he was always very kind and went out of his way to help the Hidden History Center and lent his support to John's work. We also lost Daniel Hopsicker, author of Barry and the Boys and Welcome to Terrorland, and also did some fine work, although I didn't always agree with his conclusions. And JFK researchers felt the loss of David Lifton, an individual whose work is highly valued in some circles. And there were others, of course, as the inevitable years toll on, as more witnesses, researchers, and other figures pass from the scene. Anniversaries, by their nature, are natural times for reflection, and we all have much to reflect upon. Lastly, these couple of articles on dolphins over at nature.com. Back to nature. Dolphins have a feel for electric fields. The bottlenose dolphin's keen electroreception sense might help it to locate buried prey and navigate the seas. This is being touted as some new discovery, but I'm pretty darn sure this has actually been known for quite a long time. I mean, decades at least, if not half a century. Again, I'm out of free views over at nature.com. Over at studyfinds.org, which sometimes seems like they're lifting articles straight off of other websites. Shocking study discovers bottlenose dolphins possess electric sixth sense. Nuremberg, Germany. Scientists at the Nuremberg Zoo in Germany have discovered a previously unknown sensory ability in bottlenose dolphins. Electroreception, the truly shocking finding, bridges the gap between dolphins and other known electroreceptive animals and adds a new understanding of how these charismatic creatures interact with their underwater world. Electroreception, the ability to perceive weak electric fields, is typically associated with aquatic or semi-aquatic species. This sensory skill, fascinating in its own right, has been a focus of extensive research in marine biology, predominantly observed in weakly electric fishes and some amphibian species. However, the revelation that bottlenose dolphins possess this ability challenges our perception and expands our understanding of marine sensory biology. Again, I feel like this is old news, but still, it's interesting to see it being reported. So there you go. Well, I'm going to call that a night, folks. Like I said, I'm still pretty freaked out and discombobulated from being so close to such random acts of violence. Let's hope there's peace and tranquility. Hey, is that you, Carlos? Well, hey, everybody, thanks for listening. Sorry this is so short tonight, but and where are the UFOs? Come on, where's the paranormal? Sometimes it's just, fringe science, edge science. Well, thank you for tuning in. That'll be it, folks. Good night. Hmm.